Hello, welcome to another chat. This one's going to be about one of the ways in which I think Ukraine's use of maritime drones is changing naval warfare. I am H.I. Sutton. I'm a defense analyst. I concentrate mainly on the hardware side of things. Like my other videos, this is unscripted, unedited. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I've prepared some materials. Let's get on with it. So at the beginning of the 2022 invasion, the Ukrainian Navy was really no match for the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. It was quite similar in overall terms. It had a frigate, missile boats, and so on, but it was much smaller and frankly less well armed than the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Consequently, its ships were either scuttled, sunk, or captured. Relatively few Ukrainian ships survived. There are some boats now delivered, but it is still no match for the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. What Ukraine did is seek alternative ways to try to influence the Battle at Sea. And one of the most visible, one of the most reported are the maritime drones. Essentially, what Ukraine did was take jet ski propulsion, put it in a small boat, put a bomb in the front, and send it across the Black Sea. This was very successful and is very interesting. Popularly, we call them maritime drones. The more technical term would be USV, uncrewed service vessel. Maybe we're going to start calling them one-way attack USVs. But whatever, we know what we're talking about. Before the war, there were a lot of USV programs out there. It's still quite a recent technology, but many navies, many companies were building them. What you'll notice, though, is that most of these were unarmed. The few that were armed were equipped for a defensive fight. They maybe had torpedoes or guns, but they weren't intended to go across open water and attack the enemy. Caveat, Iran and the Houthis in Yemen were doing something like that, but they weren't particularly influential. And it's a whole different talk. Okay. So Ukraine largely can be credited with changing this paradigm. And Ukraine built a lot of these. They went through many iterations. This is not strictly chronological. We only find out about them when Ukraine feels like it should reveal them, or Russia shows us some images. But they've been through many iterations, continuous improvement, and so on. And Ukraine's used them in quite a few different attacks. Russia, too, has been copying it. So you can tell it's a good idea. Russia's done one successful attack, quite interesting. We don't know exactly what the USVs look like in that case, but almost certainly influenced by Ukrainian use. And the couple of designs that Russia has shown, these are, I would say, are inferior to Ukrainian examples, but definitely influenced by them. The one on the right, sort of homemade look, I wouldn't write it off on that account. It is all the same, much more limited than the Ukrainian ones, for sure. Other countries too. These are both Turkish designs, but I think it's indicative of a new trend we're going to see. Whereas before the invasion, no companies building USVs were really offering explosive boat versions. Now I think everyone will. So it's really changed that. But there's another way that it's more significant. There's a bit that I want to actually share. So huge caveat, this is real-time analysis. Hindsight will naturally change a lot of these understandings, but we are seeing something that's different and worth sharing. The Black Sea is a sea. It is quite small, but it's not a calm lake. It is open water. Most of the Ukrainian attacks with USVs were comparatively short range. They attack in Sevastopol, which is approximately 150 nautical miles from Odessa. That's still quite a long way for USVs. You need to have a reliable communications and a reliable platform, but it is not that far either. However, some of the attacks are much further away. These are quite ambitious, further than I would have thought was going to be practical, but Ukraine made it work. Some of them also are ships in open water. Now, important to say that the ships in open water, none of these have been successful attacks in the sense of actually sinking or even damaging the target vessel. but they got very close and they demonstrate the threat. One of them is more insignificant than the others, I think. This is what's making me think. The Black Sea Grain Initiative has just expired. That was a deal that allowed Ukraine to export grain to the world, really important for food supplies around the world, particularly in Africa and developing world. Also important for the cost of grain around the world and food prices, basically. Russia now is motivated to try to inhibit these exports in some way. Probably they've already sown mines, which when they explode, they'll blame Ukraine, of course. But one thing it can do, and it is threatened to do, is board the ships, conduct inspections, maybe even seize some ships. That would be a big deal. It hasn't happened yet. But to make it happen, they deployed warships to the southern Black Sea. One of those warships was attacked. That warship now went back to port. If Russia is deterred from conducting these boarding operations by these uncrewed service vessels, that's really significant. Now, let's play hypothetical. Imagine that Ukraine hadn't lost its conventional navy at the beginning of the war. Would its frigate and whatever gunboats it can muster have been enough to prevent Russia from boarding ships in the southern Black Sea? I really don't think so. It's just no contest. In fact, this is exactly the sort of thing that the Russian Navy in Black Sea is designed to take on. Russia has complete air superiority relative to Ukraine, at least. They have missile boats. They even have submarines, and there's not much that Ukraine could do against a submarine. However, none of these assets have proven very useful against uncrewed service vessels. These uncrewed service vessels are so small and inexpensive that they're almost expendable. They're relatively stealthy. I don't want to overplay that because on an individual basis, they're not that stealthy at all, really. But they're so small, they evidently can turn up and take the Russians by surprise. And the sea is very large. They're also much longer range than you might have expected, and they're pretty reliable. I'm sure some of them fail, but at the end of the day, there are boats on. These USVs are reaching their targets. So is it enough to shape the Russian behavior? Very probably. It seems that they are the threat that is stopping the Russian Navy from deploying its warships to the southern Black Sea and doing boardings at this time. Caveats, of course, that might change tomorrow. Hindsight will be better, but this is something significant. USVs are proving useful in ways that conventional warships aren't, and they're helping shape things in ways I don't think we would have predicted. Really interesting space. Thank you for listening. Please follow, share, etc. Take care.